thank you. Thank you, Vedran. The conclusion is, I think, usually much more helpful for academic thinking than clear and definitive answers. And I would like, first of all, to really thank very much Professor Merkel for this very inspiring and I think very thought-provoking and also thorough and analytical lecture. I've really been very much impressed, and there are a couple of things that I just really want to build up on this without being too critical or critical at all. I remember, first of all, when it comes to the concept of crisis, my task here is also to give a little bit more of a kind of regional perspective, if I may, or at least my own perspective, which has been formed within this context largely. And I remember when I was a young person, very young person, that every day on the news there was a word crisis, and another one which was reforms. I think these two words, crisis and reforms, are following me throughout my life. And I can't remember one single day when somebody would not be talking, actually, or mentioning the word crisis or reform on TV. And as of recently, I think in the last 20 years, there is a word war added to this. So today we don't have, actually in the last 20 years, I don't remember a day when there is no word of war mentioned in the TV news. Every day, I can bet, in fact, in the next year, that there will be no one single day when this word is not mentioned. Now, what does that mean? It means, in fact, that this is not a unique experience. This is the experience of everyone who was listening to the news here. That means that we don't take this very seriously, neither of these concepts. And I think certainly not the concept of crisis. This is, I think, sometimes it is surprising when you come from the outside and then you say, oh, there is a Euro crisis or a crisis of the European Union, and why in the crisis of democracy. And yet at the same time it looks that the change of political of the government here in this country is relatively smooth. There is no revolution in making. It seems the level of political support, at least by public opinion surveys to the elected officials, for example, the President of the Republic here is above 60%. Above 60%. So the question is, how does that happen? If you talk about the crisis all the time, and yet at the same time, you actually have a relatively stable political system. And I think in some of our countries, in the countries of Southeast Europe, in fact, it is too stable. I mean, we've seen some countries where the last time the government has been changed through elections in 1938. Not to mention which country is that, but it is one of the candidates for the EU membership. So the point, I think the only answer to this would be, first of all, people do not actually think there is a crisis. This concept is overused. And they think, oh, well, yet another crisis. Oh, yes, okay. Yet another reform. Oh, well, we don't pay attention to this. We never reform, and we never mobilize because of a crisis, because the concept is overused. The second thing is, I think, introducing a context into this. And the context is this. If you had a war in your country, then the Euro crisis is really a little problem. It's not that anyone would pay attention to EU crisis of constitution or whatever. These kind of crises that are dramatic in Western Europe and in America and elsewhere, are not dramatic here. If you have lost all your savings to Ljubljanska banka, you don't really think that there is a major crisis of euro as a concept. And also, if you had inflation of I don't know how many billion percent as in Serbia in 1993, you don't think there is a crisis. So I think we need to be a little bit more, I would suggest a bit more contextual in this. And when we talk about the crisis, there are crises, and in inverted commas and so on and so forth. Secondly, is a question about democracy, which I very much liked in your paper. Now, I remember also the time of self-management in this country. Self-management was a system which was meant to mobilize and include everyone into some form of decision-making through, for example, working councils in the place where they work. There had been 750,000 members of working councils at some point in this country. And you see what? Actually, people decided that actually they don't want to make decisions. And this experience, in fact, is also my own personal. Sometimes, even when I have the right to make decision and to participate at a faculty committee meeting, I actually don't want it. I don't. Do I really want to be asked about all these issues, or is it much more comfortable that I trust to somebody who is, for example, an expert or whoever, for as long as he or she doesn't really make a major decision that would affect me in a very negative way. So my question would be, do people really want to be part of decision making? It seems to me, for example, the referendum on EU in this country, the predominant view was ignorance. Not ignorance, but irrelevance. Yeah? So we don't really care all that much. There is an EU indifferentism in this country and in many others. So do we really want to be part? So the second question is democracy always a solution? And I think this is a serious question. Maybe it goes beyond really what the topic of this lecture was. Because, for example, sometimes we feel we have now elections without outcome. There are elections in country X, and then there is no government. Now, what does that mean? That means it's not up to people's decision making. It doesn't matter what people say. It matters what political elites, what solution they come up with, how they interpret the will of the people. So to me, it looks that also this is a rational thing in a way, that people have decided, a lot of people have decided that in fact, we can vote, but the outcome doesn't really depend on voting. So the democracy doesn't seem to be a solution. Elections sometimes seem to be a complication. Yeah. Germany is no exception. There were elections in Germany, but we have no idea who has won. We know probably that this is Angela Merkel, but who else? Yeah, we don't know, and we might not know in the next year. So does it really matter on democracy or not? So is it not rational for people to decide, look, this is not really something I should participate in? Or for example, a referendum in this country. Everyone knew that if this one doesn't succeed, there will be another one, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, for as long as it doesn't succeed. Yeah? So people may, there is an idea that in fact we don't do it. We don't. There are two more small points I wish to make to add a bit more complication in the argument. One is about this overload of expectations by citizens. Yesterday we heard the foreign minister here saying we never discuss politics. I must admit, I'm not sure if there are journalists here, we rarely discuss politics in the president's office either. When we do, people say, oh God, no, we need to do the job, don't discuss all these big issues. And now, why? Because politics has become depoliticized, but also society is becoming depoliticized. We think it's normal that politics has nothing to do with, let's say, financial sphere. National Bank, the politics should not intervene. Yeah, it doesn't. We can't. We have no. And we used to have politics. Used to be important. Politics used to be regulate things. But now there is like, oh no, this is a separate sphere. Defense, no, this should be left to NATO and generals or something. The commander-in-chief is the president of the republic, but don't take it too seriously. And then education, for example, private sector. Is there a democracy in where it matters, and this is where people work? Is there democracy there? And so, in fact, in many spheres, we have emptied politics of any content and of power. And in that sense, people do and protest in front of Parliament, but the Parliament is not where the real power lies. They don't go to where the real power lies. And actually, they quite like that. And actually, the British Queen is a great example of a very popular person never being elected. And you are completely right in saying when we elect somebody and then we start, disliking him or her. This is a bit of a paradox. But because he cannot provide, you see this Barack Obama with his great claim, yes, we can. Actually, you can't. Actually, you can't close Guantanamo. Actually, you can't do many things that you think you can. You can't. And you didn't see it before. But now you have actually learned it through experience. The last point here I want to say is, if this is the case, can we imagine a moment in which within the European Union we might have the breakdown of a democracy in some country? And what consequences would that have for the European Union? We have some relatively weak spots. where there is a lot of police already in the streets trying to regulate affairs, and where there is almost a breakdown of democratic trust completely. What would that mean? Is the suspension of democracy possible within the European concept, and or is it likely? Well, thanks so much. I hope I haven't. I've provided more questions, no answers, but I hope some ideas also to think about. Thank you.